In this video, we're going to be taking a look on pages Access 66 and 67, in which we're going to be modifying the tab order. After watching this video, we should be able to modify tab order properties. Now, after positioning all of the controls on the form, you should check the tab order and the tab stops. Now, the tab order is the order of the focus moves as you press the tab key in the form view. A tab stop refers to whether a control can receive the focus in the first place. Now, by default, the tab stop property for all text boxes and combo boxes is set to yes, which means that it will stop on every single text box and combo box. But some text boxes, such as those that contained expressions, which we created in our last video, will not be used for data entry. And therefore, the tab stop property for a text box that contains a calculation should be set to no. Now, an unbound control, such as labels and lines, do not have a tab stop property because they cannot be used to enter or edit data. Now, on step 1 on page Access 66, it tells us that we want to go through and take a look at our entry form here, and tells us to press the tab key enough times to move through several records. So watch the screen as we hit the tab key, and you notice that the focus moves down through the record. Starts at the top from tour number to tour name to tour start date to duration, but it skips the tour end date. And then it goes straight to the city, state abbreviation, category, price, description, and then back up to the tour start date. Because we created the tour start date last, that's where it goes up to that point, at that point on there. And that's where it tells us because the tour end date text box is a calculation field, we don't want it to receive the focus because we're not going to make any changes to this. Now, to prevent the tour end date text box from receiving the focus, we need to set its tab stop properly to no using its property sheet on there. And we can work with the property sheet in either layout or design view. So in step 2, it tells us that we want to right-click the tour's entry form, or the entry form tab, and then we want to go to our design view. Once we have this selected on here, it tells us that we want to click the text box with the tour end date calculation. Now, it may already be selected from the previous video that you were working on or from the previous steps, but if it's not, make sure you have this text box right here selected. Once you have that, go over to the property sheet, and if that's not open, make sure that you click on the property sheet button here on the design tab, and we want to click on the other tab. Now, once we click on the other tab, it tells us that we want to go down and double click the tab stop property. So we go through here and we see that down here is where it says tab stop. And by default, it does say yes. If we double click it, it will switch to no. And the double click is a toggle feature that's on Access. So when we double click it, it's toggling it from yes to no. Then we need to go through there and change the name of the property, because right now, even though that we changed the caption previously to tour end date, the name of this control is still text 20. So what we want to do is we want to change the name property, which is here, from text 20, and we want to change this to tour end date. And as typical, I capitalize all the words that's on there. So the T in tour is capitalized, the E in end is capitalized, and the D in date is capitalized. Now, the other tab of the property sheet contains the properties you need to change the tab stop and tab order. Now, the tab stop property, which we just worked with on there, determines whether the field accepts focus, which means does the insertion point go into that field. And then the tab index property that is on there indicates the numeric tab order for all controls on the form that have the tab stop property set to yes. Now, the name property on the other tab is also important as it identifies the name of the control, which is used in other areas of the database. And of course, to review your tab stop changes, you need to return back to the form view. And to do that, we take a look at step 3, which tells us that we need to go to our view button here and click on the top portion of that, and that will take us back to the form view. And now we can click on our tab key 9 times. So if we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, notice it takes us to the next record instead of going to the tour end date. And of course now the tab stop has been removed from the tour end date text box, and the tab order flows correctly from the top to the bottom of the form, but it skips the calculated field. Now, of course, to review the tab order for the entire form in one dialog box, you must switch to the form design view. Next, on step 4, it tells us that we need to right-click the Tours Entry Form tab again, because we're going to change our view, and we're going to change it back to the design view. Then next, it tells us that we then want to click the Tab Order button in the Tools group to open up the Tab Order dialog box. So once we're here, we want to go to our Tools group, which is still in the Design tab, and we notice here there is the Tab Order. When we click on that, this opens up the Tab Order dialog box, which you can notice that on figure C14 or what you're noticing on your screen right here. Now, the Tab Order dialog box allows you to view and change the tab order by dragging fields up or down using the field selector. And of course, once again, the field selector is the little gray box just to the left of the field names. Now, moving fields up and down in this list also renumbers the tab index property for the controls in their respective property sheets. Now, if you want access to create a top to bottom and left to right tab order, you can always click on this button right here, which is the Auto Order button. Once we have this taken a look at, we can go ahead and move on to step 5, which is we can click on OK, because we don't want to make any changes to the tab order. If you did, you can always just move them up and down, but we don't want to in this case. You can click on OK to close the tab order dialog box. And then, of course, we can click on the property sheet button here, and that will close out the property sheet on the side here, and that will toggle it off. And then we want to go ahead and click on our Save button on the Quick Access toolbar, and that's going to save our work. Now, on page 67, it talks a little bit about layout positioning. And it says if the controls on a form are organized in a layout, you can quickly modify that layout by modifying the margins, padding, and anchoring options of the layout. Now, each of these features is found in the Positions group on the Arrange tab in the Form Design view. Now, margin refers to the space between the outer edge of the control and the data displayed inside the control. Now, when we talk about padding, padding is the space between controls. And then finally we have anchoring. That's another term that's on there. And anchoring allows you to tie controls together so that you can work with them as a group, so they all don't have to be independent of each other. And that concludes the information that's on pages Access 66 and 67, in which we modify the tab order. In the next video, we're going to be inserting in an image.